and taken out of context.
It's taken out of context.
We're taking things out of context.
Out of context.
Be taken out of context?
Taken out of context.
Taken out of context.
That is so out of context.
It's Barbara Ann. Welcome back to my channel, Straight Out of Context. Candace Owens posted this over on her Instagram stories. One of the best investigative strategies is to wait for people to lie first, then to expose them. Liars are always in a rush. They are the first to speak in any situation. That's what always rubbed me the wrong way about Bibi Netanyahu, holding the letter that Charlie wrote him back in May. I personally think that she doesn't like the fact that she doesn't know what that letter says, that she can't twist it for her own emotional and psychological manipulation and to push her own politics and agenda to keep further dividing conservative Americans. She then says, a lot of people at Turning Point USA have contacted me, and it turns out that Charlie himself had concerns about the money at Turning Point. More specifically, where exactly all of the money was going. We have proof of his concerns. Well, let's go look at her 10 videos all about Charlie Kirk since he passed away on September 10th, which she is estimated to make over 7 figures on. Yeah, that's right. The math was done. She posted this. Charlie Kirk expressed concerns. What's her proof? Her proof is this internal memo where he is addressing everybody at Turning Point USA and introducing the new Chief Operating Officer, COO. He doesn't express concerns. This is an introduction to the new COO. He says for everybody to welcome the new COO and that he hopes to make Turning Point USA more efficient. Nothing in this internal memo suggests that he had any kind of concerns over finances, that they were being mishandled, abused, or misappropriated. This is a direct manipulation and a misrepresentation of this internal memo at Turning Point USA, introducing the new COO, the same way she claims that Bibi Netanyahu was misrepresenting his private correspondence from Charlie Kirk back in May. The only proof she has is against her own claims. In fact, Candace Owens is fishing for anything she can find to back up the fact that Charlie Kirk was aligning with her religiously, politically, or otherwise. And that is just not the truth. The truth is, he was a very devout Christian. He loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He loved Zionists. He supported Israel, and he wanted Israel to win. He was a supporter and a defender of Bibi Netanyahu also, and had a private relationship with him, even if he had some disagreements on certain actions. I'm starting to see Candace Owens more as a narcissist and a sociopath. Demanding that a prime minister of a foreign nation show you and publish in full his private correspondence with anyone is not only absurd, but the audacity of anybody to say that. And all she does is further drive everybody to believe that him not publishing his private correspondence is going against her truth. Simply because she does not know what that letter says and she wants to know what that letter says so she can use it for content. Nobody, not a prime minister, not a politician, not a king, a queen, an emperor, a prince, a princess, has to show or disclose their private correspondence. Nobody does. The way that she has criticized Turning Point USA, knowing that Erica Kirk is the new CEO, the way that she has demanded that Turning Point USA release the footage of Charlie Kirk being assassinated from his camera directly behind him, the way that she told Charlie Kirk's private pastor for many years that if he's not going to release everything that he has, including his text messages, emails, and private correspondence, then he needs to be silent, that he needs to shut up. The way that she is obstructing justice and demanding that the FBI and Utah law enforcement release all of their evidence and their case file because her timeline demands it, not only puts him getting justice in jeopardy? It makes me wonder where Candace Owens really stands. And now it seems like she's advocating for Tyler James Robinson. Take a look at what else she posted on her Instagram stories. I want to break this news immediately because it feels important. And I think if I don't break it immediately, something bad might happen. I hope I have earned the trust enough of the people to believe me when I say that I have verified this information but cannot reveal the source. She never does reveal any source. None of them ever come on record. Kind of makes you wonder if she's pulling a KJ. If you're being honest, then you don't have to worry about earning the trust of people. You don't have to worry about people believing you because truth is truth. She continues, his father having turned him in after a confession is also complete fiction. To the contrary, Tyler James Robinson maintains his innocence and has never even been to the UVU campus. There are absolutely zero photos or video that the campus can produce to the contrary, which is why they have produced nothing other than a blurry image, which Tyler's family knows is not him. Really, Candace? Because they identified him based on that blurry image. They turned him in because of that blurry image. Tyler has never once expressed a suicidal thought. I want to make that clear. The federal government is lying about absolutely everything, other than the fact that it is his gun. You mean his grandfather's old gun. Here we go with the words. Not that we needed further substantiation, but Tyler Robinson did not author those Discord messages. But Candace, you said that Discord came out and said that there were no messages. I would like to again stress that he has never been to UVU campus, but, and I needed to confirm this later, I believe he was around the campus that day. Of course, as always, I will have more on this later, but I wanted to immediately publish that the Tyler Robinson suicide narrative plus the dad that did the right thing after realizing his son was guilty is a federal concoction. I think that Candace Owens is completely wrong, and she knows that she is fabricating all of this to push and fit a narrative. Mark my words, I am going to save this video and I am going to pin it because I am going to win the trust of every single person who views this video. It was not Tyler Robinson's father, but rather his mother, who's seen the photograph and knew that it was her son. She then contacted her husband, Tyler's father, and they together got him to not only come home, but to confess to them. Hey, I'm just asking questions here, but why would Candace Owens want to obstruct justice? Why is Candace Owens interested in supporting Tyler Robinson? Because it fits her narrative that the FBI and Utah law enforcement are corrupt? Why is Candace Owens impeding an active investigation that has not even gone to trial yet? And I'm just asking for a friend, but what is this stick up her ass for law enforcement officers and FBI agents? Of course, Tyler James Robinson is not going to just say that he's guilty unless he has an incentive to do so, like taking the death penalty off the table for a guilty plea. Why is she giving a platform or a voice to not only Tyler Robinson, but his family to run this fake narrative and lie against her own friend, his wife, his babies, his parents, his staff, his nonprofit organization? But as people who seek the truth and just want to know the truth, we're demanding nothing but the truth. And guess what, people? Candace Owens is not delivering you the truth. In fact, quite the opposite. This is the opposite of righteousness. This is straight demonic and evil. This is not investigative journalism. This is not a conspiracy theory. Tyler James Robinson is the assassinator of Charlie Kirk. Mark my words, he has been brought to justice and his trial will happen. And after his trial, I will make damn sure everybody comes back to this video and remembers everything they said, because you will be proven wrong. So will Candace Owens. But guess what? It's not stopping her from making almost $2 million in 2 weeks off of the Charlie Kirk assassination. And the simple facts and truth, the simple indictment, that could have been broken down to less than a video and a half. The truth apparently is at odds with Candace Owens, because it doesn't correlate, nor is it parallel to her being able to psychologically manipulate her cult, as well as further drive people apart, further incite hate, cause an even bigger division in the conservative movement, and for her to further drive more content and videos with her conspiracy theories. Okay, so it's come down to this. Candace Owens is either a narcissist or a sociopath or a straight psychopath. Or she knows she's lying and she doesn't care, because she justifies it with, I'm just investigating, I'm just asking questions, I'm just seeking the truth. And she doesn't care as long as she stays mainstream media and she stays in the 1% elite, very wealthy people in the United States. Or she truly is in a state of psychosis or is driven by AI psychosis. Allegedly, and in my own opinion, from all the research that I've done since September 10th of 2025, I'm now of the opinion that it has to come down to one of these things. There is absolutely no way being a decent human being with any kind of intellect, with any kind of heart, mind, soul, with any kind of common sense, logic, problem-solving skills, that she genuinely believes she is doing the right thing. And that's the funny thing about thoughts, feelings, critiques, and opinions. It doesn't mean that you're right just because you think you are. Truth is always backed with facts, with receipts, with proof, with evidence, and nothing can fight against that.
Okay, I didn't want to leave you guys on a crazy weekend cliffhanger.
Oh, yes, she did. She definitely wanted a cliffhanger. She wants at least 1 million to keep tuning in, especially on Monday.
I needed to get that information out as soon as possible. Obviously, you can probably see that I received some information, a communication.
No, we can't see that because you didn't show it.
Which answered a lot of questions that the public has had about the story, or rather the non-story that we are getting from the feds.
Did it really? Because his mother and his father have completely wiped all of their socials. So who is this magic person that knows Tyler Robinson so well that they're able to debunk right before his trial facing the death penalty all of the things that the FBI and the Utah law enforcement have said? The things that are worded in the indictment, in the paper filing against him, in the charges. Yeah, as we see, you're showing nothing per usual. This is what opened my eyes 2 weeks ago. I feel like I'm being Gypsy Rosed more than I was Gypsy Rosed. The thing with Gypsy Rose is that her lies are very plain and in your face. Candace Owens is very intentional. She is very organized, strategic, cunning, and very clever with how she lies and manipulates. But I see it. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Jesus of Nazareth said, "Those who have ears should hear, and those who have eyes shall see."
The push that Tyler Robinson is this lone shooter, which they're trying to establish as a fact.
It is. It is, in fact, a truth.
Some of the burning questions that we had, okay, well, if he turned himself in, how did he also not confess? I now have the answers to that.
He did confess. He confessed to his mother, his father, and a neighbor who happened to be a deputy. Confessing to the FBI or Utah law enforcement is a different story. It's the same with many different murderers. You see them plead not guilty and take it to trial. If this 22-year-old young man is smart enough to tell his lover to delete text messages, to not talk to law enforcement, and to get a lawyer, Do you really think that he's that dumb that he's just going to be like, yep, I did it to the FBI? But right is right and wrong is wrong. Truth is truth and lies are lies. See, the thing with lies is that they're always in a rush, right, Candace? If they would have just documented everything and waited until after trial, they wouldn't have to pile on top of other lies to cover for those other lies.
The main point, the reason why this information came to me is because there's a narrative being spun right now by the media that Tyler Robinson is or was suicidal.
The reason why this information came to Candace Owens is because she has been trying to reach not only Tyler Robinson's family, but the family of Lance Twiggs, his alleged roommate and lover. And this, again, is a lie and a manipulation. This is not the media. This is Utah law enforcement and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. His own mother and father stated that when he came back home and they confronted him, that he would rather, quote, end it, unquote, than go to prison for the rest of his life or face capital punishment for what he did. That is a confession. And the fact that it is his gun and that has already been self-admitted. Just trust that at the very end of this trial and all of this and the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act requests that are going to be granted after trial and sentencing, law enforcement and the FBI is going to make a liar out of Candace Owens, if you haven't picked up on it already. And I'm starting to really believe that she is paid by a foreign or domestic entity, allegedly, to cause further strife and division amongst conservatives. Everything, the entire coalition that Charlie Kirk has spent the last almost 12 years building with his heinous and horrible assassination, she is trying to dismantle all of it. And in my hearts of hearts and with my own intellect, only a demonic force can do something like that, especially to a friend.
That is not true. And that's a very scary thing when suddenly they're saying he's suicidal.
Again, that is not sudden. That came directly from the paper filing for the charges against Tyler James Robinson. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and he wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained that there was too much evil and the guy, meaning Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. This did not come out of nowhere, and the media didn't just suddenly say that he was suicidal. This came from him.
And, he's in solitary. And he's not suicidal. So that was the reason why this information urgently came to me. Obviously, I know a lot more, and I'm going to share it with you guys on Monday.
So out of that whole video, all I heard was, fuck you, tune in Monday to keep watching.
I just wanted to vet some of the things that I heard.
Now it's just some things that she heard. When she started this off with, this was information that was told directly to her, that this came directly from a source. She can't reveal who, but now it's something that she heard, and now she has to vet the source. How many lies does it take from Candace Owens for you to open your eyes and realize that you are a part of her cult? For me, it was the first two videos that she did about Charlie Kirk's assassination. And now the further monetization of his assassination, when she could give that money to a nonprofit, over $1 million towards $2 million could go towards a college fund for his kids, Turning Point USA. It could go to help support his wife, speaking to a religious or spiritual leader like a minister, a priest, a pastor, demanding to get everything that he has released to you, or shut up. I demand your silence. Be quiet. Yeah, that was it for me. That, on top of the way that she is trampling on his memory and legacy as a friend, as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a brother, as a boss, that and her blatant lies and disregard for law enforcement officers, because I generally have a lot more respect for law enforcement officers, and I don't believe they're all bad and corrupt and covering up things and lying. Sure, there are bad cops just like there are bad people in every career. But is that the norm? No, absolutely not. Is that the rule? Absolutely not. Those are the exceptions. Those are the isolated rarities.
To ask some more questions from people that would know.
Again, she knows for a fact because she has this source and it's credible. She received this communication and it just happens to be precisely what she wants to hear, what she wants to know, what she wants to use in her further content.
And just to make sure everything I say is above board.
Because one thing she's good at, she's very, very good at not committing defamation by saying an actual name. She can sit there and say whatever she wants, whatever bullshit lies, conspiracies about the FBI, about an organization, about people, donors, staff, they, us, we, them, but she's very careful at framing it like I'm just asking questions. I'm just seeking the truth here. These are all questions that presumably will be answered if you watch the trial or attend the trial. But her investigative journalist mode demands for her timeline to be absolutely 100% privy to all of the case file, the forensic and circumstantial evidence, eyewitnesses, eyewitness testimony. The bad news for Candace Owens is if that's what she wanted, she should have become a lawyer, a prosecutor, a judge maybe. The way that she is actively trying to thwart justice is bizarre to me.
And obviously this lead led to more leads, and I want to give people a chance to respond.
First, it was a credible truth and source with this communication that came directly to her that corroborated everything she needed to know and wanted to know. To then she has to vet this source to make sure what they're saying is correct because it's just something that she heard, aka hearsay. And there's a reason why hearsay is not admissible in the court of law. But now what she heard led to other leads and she has to vet those as well to make sure that what she's saying is the truth. Well, she kind of jumped the gun, no pun intended, because what is she doing right now? She's making a whole day's worth of story time and video on her X and her Instagram, ramping and gearing everybody to make sure they tune in and watch her YouTube channel on Monday. Well, that has got to be the worst coincidence I've ever heard because, you know, the thing with the truth is it doesn't wait until showtime.
This is crazy. Nothing more that I can say. This is very serious. I don't know what's going on.
The most truthful words she probably has ever said. She doesn't know what's going on because she's not privy to the case file. She doesn't have access to the case file or the evidence. For somebody who doesn't know what's going on, how can she state that it's serious then? If you don't know what the hell is going on, and this source led to another source for hearsay that you just heard in a communication, and you haven't even done that vetting process yet, how can you say that it's very serious?
But I do know that what we are being told has gone on is just not so.
It is so. And mark my words, what she just said is going to come back to bite her in her ass. I genuinely do not believe that the FBI or Utah law enforcement who brought the charges against Tyler James Robinson are intentionally lying, corrupt, or covering anything up. And Charlie Kirk would be absolutely appalled at what Candace Owens is saying and doing. But now that I am paying attention to what she is saying and what she is doing, and once my eyes opened and my ears heard, I can't unsee and I can't unhear. And if I have to see and hear, so do you. It is time for you to wake up. You are being lied to, you are being used, and you are being psychologically and emotionally manipulated by Candace Owens. Mark my words, this is the truth. This is what is happening.
And this is really kind of going to begin, I think, to answer a lot of questions and many more questions that need to be asked. So
she doesn't know what the hell is going on, but she is so sure that this kid is not suicidal and that this is so serious. She has no idea what is going on, but she knows that it's going to answer all questions and questions that haven't been asked. What kind of nonsensical gibberish is that? I now question myself. What in the fuck was I falling for the last couple years? How did I ever not pay close enough attention to what the hell I was looking at and watching? She is such a large mainstream media figurehead and narcissist that she feels like she can literally provoke the reaction she needs to use for content out of people like Bill Ackman and the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, which is exactly what she did when Bibi Netanyahu offered his condolences about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And yeah, he got a heads up from the President of the United States. He had a friendship and a business partnership with Charlie Kirk. And by heavily implying and insinuating that Bibi Netanyahu, Israel, Zionists, and Jewish Americans and Jewish American donors had some role to play in why the FBI are on this big cover-up, because they are the ones that assassinated Charlie Kirk. That is absolute, atrocious, and unfounded bullshit. It makes no sense. Charlie Kirk was one of the loudest and most famous voices that is pro-Israel, pro-Judeo-Christian relationship. It would make no sense for them to have anything to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination. In fact, I can think of somebody equally as big as far as audience as Charlie Kirk, who absolutely hates Israel, Jewish people, Zionists, that would have been not only a better target, a more logical target, but the fact that she spreads this by heavily implying and insinuating in her first couple videos about the Charlie Kirk assassination is what provoked Bibi Netanyahu to then have to come to the news and to X to then refute her insinuations and implications. Then she steps back after provoking that reaction and says, I never said Israel or anybody had anything to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I never said Benjamin Netanyahu had anything to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You didn't have to. You heavily implied and insinuated it. Made almost 5.5 million subscribers and watchers believe that he had something to do with it or Israel had something to do with it. Provoked a reaction and a response out of him. Turned around to use his response that you provoked out of him to make him look further guilty and play the perpetual victim like you had no idea what you were doing and that wasn't your plan all along. Same thing with misrepresenting what happened at Charlie Kirk's event in the Hamptons and doing the same thing to Bill Ackman, provoking and baiting Bill Ackman into showing his private correspondence and proving what really did happen. And she disguises it as, oh, he's going to lie and I know he's going to lie and I cannot wait to get him on record. Because I know what happened. No, Candace Owens does not know what happened in the Hamptons because she was not there. In fact, a lot of the people that were there said that she is full of shit and she made it all up. There was no heated argument or exchange. There was no emotional or moral character blackmail. And she also, in the same exact sentence, conflates this event in the Hamptons with allegedly Bibi Netanyahu contacting Charlie Kirk and offering him another trip to Israel and allegedly $150 million. Because what Candace Owens is trying to imply is that he was going to believe what she now believes, that he was changing religions from Christianity to Catholicism, to pro-Israel to anti-Israel. And that is just not the truth. That was fabricated by her. Yes, Benjamin Netanyahu offered Charlie Kirk back in May of 2025 another trip to Israel. It had nothing to do with the event with influencers in the Hamptons. Those are two completely different, separate things. That is not only a misrepresentation, that is a lie. It is a fabrication. And we know how much narcissists and sociopaths like to do that. They like to mix a little tiny bit of truth in with their lie to give the lie plausibility. It's a tactic, but what she's also doing is trying to provoke further reaction out of people that were there. And why? What's the purpose? Because Candace Owens doesn't know, because she wasn't there.
I just wanted to let you know that what they're telling us about him being suicidal is not true.
I don't know. If he was suicidal not even 2 weeks ago, chances are he might be prone to being suicidal again. So that's not a claim that I would make, especially when you don't even know Tyler Robinson.
This like new flex operation mocking pastor, regarding which, by the way, the first time they went after Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, a source told me, and I would love to get this confirmed, I'm going to find this out, that $150 million was spent on that, and it came from Bibi Netanyahu. I would like to figure out if that's true.
And thus, it's going to be spread like it's true because you just said it and you just made it up. That's the problem with Candace Owens.
And I'm not going to let it go, okay? You're not going to emotionally use some jujitsu.
Projection. I cannot believe that I did not see it before. She is projecting. That is exactly what she is doing. That's why she's obsessed with psychiatry, with MK Ultra, with Mossad, with CIA and FBI, with psychiatric evaluations and psychiatric tactics, with Sigmund Freud, and reading all of these books about psychiatry and brainwashing, because that's exactly what she is employing on her audience right now.
I'm referring here to Roy or Rob McCoy, who says, I'm Charlie's pastor and here's the truth, or whatever it is, to look the other way right now. Okay? You're not going to tell me that I have to feel too bad to investigate who shot my friend in front of my face.
First of all, Candace Owens was not there at the event, so it wasn't in her face. Why she's begging for Turning Point USA to release all of their camera footage of said event is beyond me. But as of right now, there's only one person charged, and that is Tyler James Robinson. So that answers the who question. And I'm really alarmed with the cold-hearted way that she just said, shot my friend right in front of my face. Then why are you begging to watch that gruesome footage over and over and over in 8K ultra high definition through multiple different cameras that Charlie Kirk had at the event, calling for Turning Point USA to release all of their footage? The blatant disrespect and disregard for his sister, his parents, his wife, and his 1 and 3-year-old babies is disturbing. Candace, I genuinely pray to the Lord that this never happens to you, your husband, your family, your babies, and that someone flew over the cuckoo's nest, comes to the internet, to a mainstream media audience, and does what you are doing right now to Charlie Kirk.
Nonsense. This is what Charlie's pastor passed around to all of the people that were intimidating Charlie leading up to his death. It's funny that Charlie's pastor couldn't find his voice when Bibi Netanyahu was lying about Charlie.
He absolutely wasn't lying about Charlie. Charlie Kirk made his ideas, thoughts, feelings, opinions on Israel very clear, even right before he passed away. He said verbatim, I love Israel and I want Israel to win. The fact that she is taking what the pastor put out publicly on X and conflating it with Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. And now she's not only defaming his longtime pastor and friend, but she's insinuating and implying that he is complicit because he's colluding with Israel and Bibi Netanyahu and not speaking up.
Pastor, you know what he's saying is our lies. No, he didn't find his voice saying anything about Bibi Netanyahu. Candace investigating things? Yeah, that's got to stop.
Candace, did it ever once cross your mind that his pastor is likely his wife and his children's pastor, and that he was speaking on behalf of the family? That maybe all of these videos that you've done in 2 weeks has hurt his wife and his family, his kids, his organization, his staff? Again, it's not that you're investigating. It's what you're insinuating, what you're implying, who you're insinuating and implying things about. His wife thanked the FBI and law enforcement. She stood there tall and offered forgiveness to the young man who took the life of her husband and her children's father. She has remained silent about you, Candace Owens, but that doesn't mean that their pastor has to remain quiet. But what comes next? This is what did it for me. This is when I said, I'm done. I no longer am a fan of Candace Owens. I no longer support her, and I see clearly what is happening here. Corruption, lies, and manipulation can come in many, many forms, and Candace Owens is not free from guilt on any of them.
He wrote, Charlie Kirk was my friend and I was his pastor. I want to simply say this regarding Candace Owens. Charlie Kirk was a friend to Candace and never publicly spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her. He never operated or entertained gossip or innuendo concerning Candace. My only comment I offer regarding Candace is this. I only wish at this tragic time of mourning, she would be the friend to Charlie Kirk that he was to her. He would never have treated Candace or her family in such a way had God forbid this tragedy been hers. A friend loves at all times, and he drops a biblical proverb. Now, let me say this, okay? I hope that Charlie would have been the sort of friend that I'm being.
Narcissism, pure narcissism. That is psychological egoism, conceit, megalomania.
Okay, he would have never. Why? Why wouldn't Charlie Kirk have investigated if I had been killed and we were being so obviously lied to?
Because he would have left it to the authorities, the professionals. He would have allowed and aided them in doing their job appropriately to bring justice. That's not what you're doing. It looks like you're trying to obstruct and impede justice from happening. And now you are supporting the person who is charged with his assassination by telling everybody that, oh, if anything happens to him, he's not suicidal. It's fear-mongering. It is emotional and psychological manipulation, and it's feeding into your false narrative of your conspiracy theories that federal agents and law enforcement are all bad, lying, and corrupt. I think Charlie Kirk really would have been a good friend, and he would let law enforcement do their job and even help them.
I think you're wrong. I think Charlie was a real friend, and he would not have dropped it. He would not have let it go, least of all because he was being emotionally manipulated by a guy.
Like your entire audience is being emotionally and psychologically manipulated right now.
Who curiously kept his mouth shut when Bibi lied. You knew, if you were really his close friend and pastor, how he was feeling about Bibi Netanyahu. You knew, if you were his close friend and pastor, exactly the names of everybody who was intimidating him and how poorly they are misrepresenting the things that he believed.
Charlie Kirk himself said multiple times, even up to the day before he passed away, how he feels about Benjamin Netanyahu, how he feels about Israel, about Zionists, about Jewish people, about Jewish Americans, about financial donors. He even said that he does not take money from any foreign entity, only Americans. And even if those Americans are Jewish Americans acting in the interest of Israel and Bibi Netanyahu, she doesn't know anything, guys. She doesn't know what's really happening or going on. She has no idea. She has to vet a source that led to another source that led to another lead, all because of hearsay. She wants Charlie Kirk to be in alignment with her thoughts, feelings, and opinions, both religiously, politically, about Israel, about the prime minister. But that is just not true. And his financial donors to Turning Point USA are completely separate from Israel and their prime minister. And what his pastor knew in confidence or did not know is none of Candace Owens' fucking business. It's not my fucking business. It's not your fucking business. She knows that this confidentiality stands and she's using it. She's using it to imply that his long-term friend and pastor is not only not telling the truth about Charlie Kirk and where he was heading as far as politics and religion, but that unlike her, he is doing a disservice because he won't tell the truth, because he won't release everything that he has and knows. It's because she wants to know what he knows and has, because she doesn't have it, she doesn't have access to it, and she doesn't know what he knows. It's the same instigating and provoking of a foreign leader that she has done so many times on X. I'm telling you, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I know what she's doing. And once you see it, you will never see her come to any conclusion or show anything of value because she's spending her entire hour allotment for her show doing this. And that is exactly what narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths do.
So why don't you focus on being more honest as a pastor and give much information as you can possibly provide so that we can continue this investigation? If you can't do this, I'm going to have to ask for your silence. Okay? Be quiet.
And this is how she manipulates the audience. She says we, as in our investigation. She has the audacity to tell a religious and spiritual leader and friend to Charlie Kirk, his wife and kids, that if you don't give me everything that you have and that you know for our investigation, then what you're doing is lying and helping the dirty, corrupt feds and law enforcement to cover up who really killed him. And if you're not going to give me everything I want and everything that I need and everything that I want to know, then I'm going to demand that you shut the fuck up. Be quiet, be silent, and get out of my damn way. Because of course his pastor and friend telling the truth on X flies in the face of what Candace Owens is pushing to her audience. And that, my friends, is a problem for her. That's why she had the very vicious reaction that she did. I don't believe Charlie Kirk would ever talk to her Catholic priest that way. Love Candace Owens or hate her, God forbid that this tragedy had been hers, nobody would have talked to her priest that way.
Came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about bees.
Yes, even beekeepers have Reddit forums.
You're going, Candace, like literally bees in a way that the only way I can describe it, she was like, they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded. And I'm going, am I going crazy? Or do you think that all these people are really actually, quote unquote, bee farmers?
Again, she shows no proof. And I would say, yes. Yes, Candace, you are crazy.
Oh my goodness. And my gut is telling me Utah state flag is a hexagonal beehive, right?
The Utah state flag looks like a beehive, but not a hexagon. She's trying to imply that the state of Utah is corrupt and that they participate in some kind of underground child trafficking, and that this Reddit forum for beekeeping or bee farming is code for children, not bees. Do you have any idea how absolutely insane that sounds? So if that's the case, what do we say about Hawaii mixing an American and UK flag? We had an entire Revolutionary War, Independence Day, and Constitution when we broke away from Britain. What is she going to say about the Mississippi state flag that has a white lotus? Or Minnesota with their 8-pointed star? Or what about her home state of Tennessee? It looks awful Confederate-like. 3 stars. The number 3 means the unholy trinity, Satanism. Who lives in Tennessee? Candace Owens lives in Tennessee. The unholy number of 3 is also half of 6. 666 is the sign, the mark of the beast. You, me, and the devil makes 3. So what does the Tennessee state flag say about Candace Owens? Next, she's going to say that Charlie Kirk really isn't dead and he's on an island with Marilyn Monroe, Tupac, and Elvis. Of course, she didn't attend his real funeral and alleged burial, so she doesn't know for sure if he's really buried or dead. And because he's such good friends with Kash Patel since before he became the FBI director, and even after he became the FBI director, maybe they were in collusion. Maybe Charlie Kirk is in the witness protection program, and his wife and kids are also going to enter the witness protection program, and Kash Patel is really covering for Charlie Kirk's faking of his own death. Using Candace Owens' own logic that is preposterous, that is absurd, that is nonsensical, and she is making a mockery of not only herself, of Charlie Kirk and his family, staff, and nonprofit, of conservatives, of Catholics or Christians, of her audience, but of Americans.
I don't know, but I know. Okay? I don't know, but I know. It makes sense?
That's what we know. She doesn't know anything.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
In Candace Owens' lies, because it's something. Have a watch.
To ask you, what do you think about the rumors that Charlie was scared for his life, wondering if Israel was going to allegedly take him out before he died?
I think there's a game that gets played online. Make a allegation. I use that word advisedly. And then when a bunch of people push back, you say, you see, they've now taken the allegation seriously enough to deny it. There's not one iota of evidence that that's true. Not one. I was not at the meeting in the Hamptons with Bill Ackman. I have friends who were at the meeting with Bill Ackman, right? People like Josh Hammer, for example, or Seth Dillon. I know that they'd been invited by Charlie, and they've spoken pretty publicly, I believe, about what it was that went down. Bill Ackman has spoken pretty publicly. First of all, the notion that Charlie would be, quote unquote, blackmailed into taking a position is just unbelievably silly. The people who are spreading these rumors, they're agents of demoralization. They're trying to split the movement. They're trying to smear Charlie's legacy. I mean, Charlie was 2 things. He was a principled man who argued in public, and he was also a coalition builder. Coalition building is a very difficult business. Mm-hmm. Right? It's a business where you have to hold together a bunch of people who disagree on a bunch of different areas. And there can be real, as I said before, disagreements behind the scenes about how to handle those sort of pragmatic matters of building a coalition. But this notion somehow that Charlie, for example, was radically shifting on Israel, and suddenly he was going to turn into a fan of Hamas and start preaching that. If you can show me evidence of that, I mean, I was interviewed on his show the day before he was shot, and we laughed together about some of the allegations that were being made along these lines.
Now, I want everybody to remember that Ben Shapiro is a Jewish American. He's the co-founder and an editor for the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is the same media that let Candace Owens go. She also wasn't allowed to have a YouTube for close to a year when she was forced to go independent with the financial backing of her very ultra wealthy elite husband. Remember, Candace Owens met her husband and very quickly married him, and they married at Trump Winery. The same Donald Trump who she pushed everybody to go vote for the first and second time and now does not support or his administration. However, it is also to be noted that Ben Shapiro was friends with Charlie Kirk. Very close friends. Candace Owens, however, might not feel the same way because she's anti-Semitic. She does not support Israel. She does not support the government or the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu. She doesn't support Zionism and apparently Protestantism anymore either.
Nobody's going to believe me who doesn't want to believe me online, because that's how it works in the X space. But you know better than I do. You tell me. You are on the inside here.
So my perspective being on the inside is actually, you said that perfectly about coalition building. So he was very disturbed by this splitting on the right. He was like, this is a way bigger issue than we even realize. Like, I mean, the whole movement is basically splitting in half, pro-Israel, anti-Israel. What am I going to do here? Like, let's give everyone an opportunity to speak, share their sides. I mean, that's why he hosted this debate on Israel at SAS this summer. He was planning on having, you speak at our events, Tucker speak at our events. Like, so it was like, let's just give everybody a platform. Internally, I never personally heard any like major worldview shifts on Israel like that. It was just very much, I'm hearing what everybody's saying, You
would know better than I would, but again, that seemed to be my perception from the outside. I mean, again, until the day he was shot, he was publicly a pro-Israel person in every debate that he ever personally held in terms of his personal beliefs.
And this is the truth. Charlie Kirk said this the day before he was murdered. Candace Owens is fishing and provoking whatever information she can get or find to back up her investigation, to use not only the life, but the murder of Charlie Kirk to back up her political beliefs, her thoughts and opinions and feelings on Jewish Americans, Zionists, Bibi Netanyahu, Israel, what she believes is the one true faith. This has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. It has nothing to do with honoring him or their friendship. All you have to do to verify and corroborate this is go back and watch every single thing Charlie Kirk said up until the time he was murdered in relation to Israel, in full context. It's going to be time consuming, but he tells you himself. He always told everybody himself what he thought and felt up until the day before he was sadly murdered.
Which those were in the last couple months. I mean, that it's very, very recent conversations. After that interview, just a few days before he died, between you and Charlie on Israel, did he text you after the interview anything?
No, the last text that I received from Charlie was inviting me to speak at, I mean, I can pull it up. It was literally inviting me to speak at AmFest.
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And he said, great, we'll plan it. That was the last text that I received from Charlie. And that would have been the prior 3, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pretty horrendous game being played at the moment. And it's being played by the likes of Candace Owens, especially Candace. She's realized that if I can say the most provocative thing I can possibly want to defend his own damn name. And I think it's, I get really furious and fiery over lies. I hate them.
Now, it was no secret that Bibi Netanyahu has recently visited the United States. This was posted specifically about his mission to brief American influencers, starting with TikTok, because since January 19th of 2025, the United States has been trying to force TikTok to sell, and not sell to just anybody, but to an American citizen. Clearly, you know about the ban and how Donald Trump extended that, and negotiations are still happening. However, on January 19th, ByteDance, which owns TikTok, was forced to take all 170 million American users out of 340 million American citizens, all of their private data, and forward it to a company called Oracle, which is a third-party tech company. So yes, the algorithm not only changed, it completely was botched. And now they're trying to force TikTok to not only completely sell, but at least sell all 170 million US TikTok users under an American version of TikTok. Of course, Candace Owens was all over it like stink on shit. Not only predictable, but fucking cliche. She says Trump just allowing Israel to purchase our speech because he's entirely impotent when it comes to Bibi. Israel is so retarded. Now, don't come after me. I am verbatim reading what she is saying. That they don't realize this purchase will have the opposite desired effect. Nowhere in the US law that banned TikTok does it say anywhere or anything that TikTok has to be sold to Israel or that negotiations are happening for Israel to buy TikTok for the Americans that use TikTok. In fact, the opposite. They're trying to force a US citizen to buy TikTok. But what's even crazier is that they're trying to tell a Chinese-based app that they have to sell, and not just sell to anybody, but to an American citizen. Now, that is cliche and entitled for America to believe that we should own every single one of the most successful social media platforms in the world. You know, because Google, YouTube, Apple, Microsoft, Sony, Facebook, even MySpace before that, Instagram, X, they hated the fact that the TikTok algorithm was much more preferred by American users and young American users than other social media platforms. They want to make money off of TikTok. They don't want to pay creators or give us nobodies a fair opportunity. Nope, not at all. But of course, she's going to turn this around and make it about Israel and Bibi Netanyahu because she's biased and doesn't like him. It's always some weird anti-Semitism with her and Jewish people and Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. She goes on to say this on X. The mind of a satanic Zionist is truly fascinating. We need to own, threaten, and destroy more. There is quite literally no truth in these people. Well, that's pretty bold of her to say. I mean, she's slamming Bibi Netanyahu left and right, but when we look at what was said, she again is misrepresenting and manipulating. She also says this. I love that Bibi Netanyahu was asked how to combat Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and his answer was effectively, we have to buy TikTok. Like, it has never once occurred to these people to simply stop murdering people and maybe start telling the truth. Not even an option. Kind of like what you're doing with your last 10 videos about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Putting it on a widow not 2 days after her husband was assassinated for the whole of the world to see on the internet. That the only people that can shut you up is your priest, your husband, and Erica Kirk. Like it was her job to step away from what happened in her life, to pay attention to Candace Owens, to babysit Candace Owens, and to tell her to stop and shut the fuck up. I love this intelligence right here. I could just kiss this person behind this account. They say he didn't say any of those things. Why did you cut off before his answer? So your followers will believe the lies that you spew. Talk about bearing false witness, Candace. Round of applause for that. If you want to hear what was said in full context, I am going to play that clip for you. One influencer asks Bibi Netanyahu a question, and then there is his response to said question. Take a good listen.
So something I would like to raise, which was actually my first published paper, was how you and the Likud party are cut from the same ideological cloth as Trump and the GOP in America. And so specifically with Charlie Kirk's assassination, who was a big mentor of mine, who's my first mentor in the space, evangelicals, from all my research, evangelicals are the reason that Israel has been supported in public sphere outside of just Jews. So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel? What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside of the diaspora?
Christian influencers. Okay, you said we talked about the woke right, and you said I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're Louise, but they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay, and you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, you know, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok. TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. Exactly. Very good. And, you know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now. We have to fight the fight, okay? To give direction to the Jewish people and give direction to our non-Jewish friends or those who could be our Jewish our friends. Are we going to succeed with everyone? No. Will there be a strong counterpart? Yes.
Yep. Somebody is certainly misrepresenting everything they see, know, and hear. Twisting, distorting, deflecting to psychologically and emotionally manipulate their particular audience. And even Candace Owens is not above criticism or critique. Even from a nobody like me, even Candace Owens cannot manipulate me psychologically or emotionally into feeling bad for a 22-year-old young man who made the poor, heinous choice of killing Charlie Kirk, who now is embarrassed and regrets what he did. Even Candace Owens is not that smart, that revolutionary, that kind, that truthful, or that faithful. Even Candace Owens is not that fair. Her motives, her actions, her words, her choices, and her behaviors. From her very first video about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, my eyes were opened. My ears were opened. I am no longer in her cult, and I am no longer a fan or a supporter. In fact, I myself have turned to reading the Bible again because of the vibe and the feeling that I got from her last 10 videos. And I don't know, but I know. My gut, my intuition, my intellect has never steered me wrong.
I'm one of the Masons of Turning Point USA, telling you to back off right now. Like right now, don't do it, okay? Don't you think about it. I know exactly who you are. I know exactly who you were that were exerting pressure. Don't you pretend to be noble now and say nice things about Charlie Kirk and think you're going to slide into his chair, okay?
Imagine looking in the camera for a show for an audience of over 5.5 million subscribers and saying those words to an imaginary person or people that don't even exist, because the only person that moved into his chair was his wife, Erica Kirk. And as one of the very few elite mainstream media figureheads, one of the Freemasons, one of the Illuminati behind Turning Point USA. She is not going to let those imaginary friends move into his chair. Big bad Candace came with her big bag full of tricks. And apparently, theatrics, acting, performance is one of them.
They're all in the same club that you ain't in. All of them. All of them. And you know why they make that hand symbol? Because it looks like that. And that's the Freemason symbol. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear what Candace Owens has to say about it. That's a funny looking symbol too. I wonder what that one means. Remember, they love the number 3. As in 1, 2, 3. Funny how they're both making it. He's the supposedly. Now let's hear from Candace.
Those of you who think that you are going to replace Charlie Kirk, okay? Kings are born. You don't just get to depose and tell us that we're going to follow this individual.
Okay, tough girl.
Okay? I'm one of the Masons of Turning Point USA.
Excuse me? Baking powder?
I'm one of the Masons of Turning Point USA.
Oh. Gotcha.
You put a shill in Charlie Kirk's chair, in Charlie Kirk's company.
She's one of the Masons. One of the Masons. You know, the people all on the TV. Like, you can't get on the TV unless you join their elite club. Kind of like all of them. That's a funny symbol. It kind of looks like horns to me. And if you think it's I love you, come on. And you can't get on the TV unless you join the club. It's time to figure this out, people. They've been lying to you long enough. But of course, all this for entertainment purposes. I'm sure that every single ever celebrity and government person just happens to be doing this and the devil horns because it's fun and cute for picture's sake only. Come on. Entertainment only. All coincidence.
Charlie, and I had a quick question about anti-Semitism online. Another question here they asked about Candace Owens, and I'm a big fan of you. I was a big fan of her, but she's obviously been going down this anti-Semitic bent. And through her, I'm kind of finding out about these other characters online, like Nick, for instance. I'm sure you've heard of him. And these people, they've been active for a long time, and it seems like they've just been ignored, which is working, but now they're kind of surging in popularity. And as someone who, I enjoy watching your debates, are they people you'd be willing to engage with and maybe shut them down in a way through a debate or something like that?
Well, I mean, I'll get to debate Candace. But no, look, I'll debate anybody that shows up at our campus events first and foremost. But I do want to take what you say and extrapolate that there is a corner of the internet of people that want to point and blame the Jews for all their problems. Everybody, this is demonic and it's from the pit of hell.
And let's not forget, that is what the Nazis did in Germany. From 1929 to 1939, Hitler spent that decade going from hatred, hate-driven rhetoric to racism, aka anti-Semitism against the Jews, to rounding them up in ghettos to deport them, putting them in slave concentration camps and forcing them to work. Forced labor, not feeding them, not able to keep up with the demand of deporting them, and intentionally killing them. 6.6 million Jews. Over 75 million men worldwide. Blaming the Jews for why they lost in World War I due to Germany's failure to achieve a quick victory, blaming the Jews for why they hadn't won, blaming the Jews for being in Europe for hundreds, if not thousands of years, after displacement and displacement and displacement of Israel, which has been many, many times in the last 5,000 years, to blaming them for taking the rightful shops of good German patriots, blaming Jewish people for why German men were drunkards and beating their wives, cheating and not working, blaming them for the fall, the destruction, and the state of Europe. See how quickly patriotism can turn into racism, and then slavery, and then deportation, and then intentional killing, murder. Now, 6.6 million Jewish people died. at the hands of the Nazis. But people like Candace Owens, they are Holocaust genocide deniers. Remember, Candace Owens doesn't believe in dinosaurs, and she doesn't believe in science, and she believes the earth is flat. But 75 million soldiers around the world died, a lot of them American, including my mother's father, my grandfather's oldest brother, Francis Claude Peterson, born on July 5th of 1915 and died sometime at Battle of the Bulge in 1945 in Russia in World War II, fighting to liberate the Jewish people, fighting to stop a tyrannical dictator, fighting for the basic human right to life and liberty, to freedom of oppression. And not even 7 years later, my grandfather would lose his other living brother, Clifford Lemire, a first-class sergeant in the Korean War, doing the same exact thing for Korea. The battle at Baldy Ridge. My grandfather had another brother that died in infancy. He had a brother who was 9 years old with his 9-year-old best friend, who were kidnapped in Detroit on March 13th of 1926, were murdered and found on the Canadian side of the Detroit River 2 months later, and my grandfather's brother over 4 months later in Canada. My grandfather was the last and the youngest of 5 brothers, and he served in the Coast Guard until he had to be honorably discharged as the last of his bloodline. My great-grandmother lost a son, a father, and a husband within 4 months of each other, lost 4 of her 5 children. America doesn't have to give up its fathers, its uncles, its brothers, its husbands, its sons for a foreign country in war that has nothing to do with us. But yet we have done it time after time after time, again and again and again, because we believe in the fundamental, basic human right, the human right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we would much rather die for others being able to have that same exact basic human right than to sit back and do nothing at all. So if anybody wants to preach about history, don't preach to me, because the most patriotic thing that I have ever seen in my life is people in my own family giving up their life, their liberty to liberate the Jewish and stop the tyrannical dictator of Hitler and the Nazi regime, the Third Reich, to stop North Korea from invading South Korea and taking it over under communist rule. And guess what? In both World War II and the Korean War, we succeeded. American men did not die in vain. And by God, by truth, people came together to do the right thing. Charlie Kirk stood for the right thing. Anti-Semitism is evil. It is a force of Satan. It is demonic. Nobody agrees with genocide, with innocent civilians being casualties of war. But the last thing the world needs is a World War III, is a repeat of history, starting with hatred, division, political hatred and division, political violence, racism, and the intentional, deliberate killing of millions of innocent lives.
And it should not be tolerated, period. But it goes to a structural problem of an entire generation that has economic resentment. They don't own anything. They're not getting married. They're not having children. They're depressed. They're anxious. They're staring at their screens all day long. And all of a sudden, your extrapolation of all that is, well, it's the Jews' fault. That is sloppy and shallow thinking. And not only that, they say, oh, it's the Jews' fault. Okay, let's kind of play this out. Well, tuberculosis, that used to kill about 1 billion people. You know, it's a group of Jewish scientists that came up with the antibiotic that cured tuberculosis. How about CPR, the MRI machine? You know, there's over 500 million lives that were saved over the last 50 years because of people that were Jewish scientists that were working on things. They'll never say thank you to the Jews, but they'll always say shame on the Jews. It's weird how that works. And finally, they always blame the Jews for stuff. Jewish people are an ethnicity. So therefore, definitionally, you have people that are secular, orthodox, religious, that are all over the spectrum. You're trying to blame an entire ethnicity for a singular problem. Hold on, let's take a step back here. Instead of that, what could you possibly do in your own personal life to improve your own state of being? If you are blaming 0.02% of the world's population for all of your problems, that is not going to be good for your soul. It's not good for your psychology. It's not good for your future in any way, shape, or form. And so I would just say this, that any young person that goes into this hyper online brain rot, you are serving yourself over to your own demise. You are serving yourself into a suicide mission that will not make you happier and not make you healthier. Instead, here's what your attitude should be. Your attitude should be like, I can't own stuff, I got it, can't own a home, I'm not getting married, I don't know who to date. Said, wow, the challenges are immense. I'm going to now overcome all those challenges and go on an adventure. I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm now not going to be a victim. I'm going to be a victor. I'm going to dig deep. This is still a great country. This is a free country. I'm going to use my agency. I'm going to use my ability. And I'm not just going to go point in the corner and be like, I'm overweight because of the Jews. Women don't want to date me because of the Jews. How about this? As Jordan Peterson would say, sit up straight with your shoulders back, follow the rules for life, make yourself interesting, learn something new every single day, and instead of pointing at a small group of people and engaging in this brain rot, become a better person. You'll be a happier and healthier, more joyful and productive person.
If you liked my video, please like, share, turn on notifications, and smash the subscribe button.